Welcome to Fight Week on 5, brought to you by the 5 Reasons Sports Network. I'm Jonathan. On my right, we got the fight genius himself, Mr. Alpha Altiaga. How you doing, my friend?
Great. Not as good as Connor, though. Not as good as Conor McGregor. No.
Even in a loss, it's still a hefty paycheck. We got Manny running the back. We appreciate Manny as always. But let's just get right into it, man. Getting into the previous card we had, UFTC 257, Dustin Poirier, he came out and he implemented his game plan. How do you think he came out? How do you feel about what he did on Saturday night?
Oh, I thought it was brilliant. It was it was a perfect game plan. He decided, okay, I'm going to bring in some wrestling. I'm going to make him defend takedowns. I'm going to take him down one time, so now he has to defend a different level. Then I'm going to keep him busy by eating all of these leg kicks, right? And then while I'm doing that, I'm going to start showing him feints, ducking under his long left hooks, and countering every single one of them. And I thought it was completely brilliant. I didn't expect him to be as good as he was, and I don't think it was. I think I overreacted at the night. At the night, I thought that Conor McGregor. I think I put it out on Twitter that Conor McGregor doesn't see the punches anymore. I don't think so. I don't. I was wrong. I think this was just a perfect performance by Dustin Poirier. I think Conor McGregor is still a viable fighter. Just was not a viable fighter on this night.
Yeah, I mean, it was really obvious that he took like a long time from UFC, and he was
Mm-hmm.
really focusing on his boxing because it seemed like he just didn't know where those leg kicks came out of, and for him that was just something that really tore him up. And Dustin
Mm-hmm.
implemented his game plan perfectly. He came out, and we got the takedown. We talked about it last week. What does he need to do? And I talked about it that he needed to get that early takedown and get Connor working. And even in the clinch, Connor was able to get those shoulder shrugs, and I think he
Mm-hmm.
does that better than almost anybody I've ever seen. He hits those
Yeah.
shots really really well. So I thought one of them busted Dustin's nose because he hit him right perfectly on the nose with a good angle in it. So he came out and he really made Connor work. He made him work in the clinch. He made him work off his back. And we know Connor is most dangerous in the first two rounds. Almost I think
Mm-hmm.
all but one of his knockouts are in the first 2 rounds. So for Connor, if he didn't come out firing, he was going to lose this fight. And even though he won the first round, Dustin did what he had to do. He chopped him down. He hit those leg kicks. He made Connor slow, and that's what you have to do is you have to make him slow. And once he got him in that corner and Connor couldn't move, he unloaded on him. And
And he made him predictable. I think Dustin Poirier completely knew exactly what Conor McGregor was trying to do. And it's interesting that you say that he's been working on his boxing because he seemed to be stepping with his punches like a boxer. Like this was not the normal Conor McGregor that we're used to seeing, right? This wasn't the wide stance. He wasn't bouncing on the tips of his toes. He was trying to step with his punches and try to bring a jab and then get out of the way of the jab, make space for his hook, and then bring it in. And you could see, I rewatched the fight today, by the way, because I wanted to refresh my memory to see how Dustin Poirier set that all up. And you could see Poirier glancing down at his feet. And every time McGregor steps to his right to set up his jab and then his hook, you see Poirier's looking at it and saying, okay, here it comes. I got to make sure I throw my check hook right away. Sure enough, he hit it. He hit him with it twice. The second time he hit him with it, you could see it was the beginning of the end for Conor McGregor. I thought he fought a predictable fight. Maybe he needs to go back into the lab and work on his skills again. But I thought Dustin Poirier couldn't have fought any better, and I think he launched himself. And I know it's Conor McGregor. It's not like he beat Khabib or even Charles Oliveira here, but I think he launched himself into the conversation for anybody in that division.
yeah, I agree. And I think it was really funny when Dustin was keep checking him with that right check hook. He would
Yeah,
point at him and he would give him that little hey, like, hey, I caught you. Like, I
yeah,
hit you there. And I
yeah. He
love
shouldn't have told him anything. He should have just kept throwing it until he knocked him out with it, which
because
eventually he kind of did.
right. But he made Connor know that he was a little more relaxed in this fight because he was obvious in the first fight, and it was very talked about in the first fight that he was a little bit nervous. And Manny said it. Connor had no calves. You know what I mean? And like you said, he was stepping in like a boxer. So when he was putting all that weight to his front leg, Dustin would just kick that leg, and he couldn't.
Yeah.
Even when he was trying to turn out and check it, it was already too late. Dustin already had worn his game plan too long. So getting into Dustin, that should have been a title fight. At the end of the day, that should have
Mm.
been a title fight. Um, he said that his belt is on the mail, so I don't know if that means it's going to be something like where like with like Jose Aldo when he got his belt in the mail when he was kind of the uncrowned champion. With Khabib most likely not coming back, um, Dustin pretty much is the uncrowned championship. But who do you think he should fight next if he doesn't have that belt right now?
If they could turn it around really, really quick, I don't feel good about a guy who won the first one, lost the second one, is asking for a trilogy fight, and you just don't give it to him. So if they could turn this around quickly, and let's face it, they only went 2 rounds, so they can turn this around quickly. If Connor's asking for it, I think you please, your biggest pay per view draw, and finish out that trilogy, and then we start talking about the rest of the division, Charles Oliveira, the works. Maybe even a Tony Ferguson fight. Because that would be a lot of fun. Maybe bring him back against Gaethje. There's so many things you can do, but I do believe that, and I know it's like a broken record, but I think he deserves it. I think Conor McGregor does deserve that trilogy. He didn't lose twice. He did win the first fight 6 years ago, but he deserves to run it back. Let's run back the trilogy. Let's see if he can learn from that.
Yeah, and you would expect him to. You know what I mean? He's somebody that, first in that fight, he lost in eight. What was it, fourth round or second round? I can't remember right off the top of my head. But he lost in
Mm-hmm.
eight fast. And then the next fight, he came out, he implemented his game plan. Very close fight, but he came out and he showed that he can grow in between fights. So I think that would be
Mm-hmm.
interesting. For Dustin, I think that would be great for him because you just get another payday. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
everybody know who Dustin Poirier is, and the odds are already out that Connor would be the favorite in that fight. So he's coming in as a dog again. But I think the guy that deserves it the most in the division right now would have to be Do Bronx, Charles Oliveira. You know what I mean? 8 in a row. He beat Tony Ferguson bad. You know what I mean? He really beat him up. Gaethje, probably the second guy behind him that deserves that shot. But I think Oliveira does deserve that shot to get to the belt. But now getting into Connor, if he doesn't fight Dustin Poirier, what do you think should be his next move?
I don't know. I think back to the drawing board. Maybe try to finesse a Tony Ferguson fight. Like I think that'll get some eyeballs. But I don't know if it's as simple as just put him in with anybody for him to get a win. Because people have already seen him lose. They've seen him in against the best and seen him lose. So I don't know. For Conor McGregor, I believe he has one fight. As far as the immediate future, it has to be Dustin Poirier. If he doesn't get that, I don't know. I don't know where he goes. Maybe he goes hunting for something else at 170. You know, maybe and I think it's a terrible fight for him. But Conor McGregor or Jorge Masvidal, like would that draw a crowd?
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's a terrible fight for him, but I think it'll draw a crowd. So yeah, absolutely, something like that maybe. But as far as championship, as far as fighting for a championship, there's only one path back for him. He has to get back this win against Dustin Poirier. If not, I think he's kind of done as a championship contender in the UFC.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that. I mean, I feel like if he's unable to get past Dustin again, there's really nothing for him to do. For him to get that path back up, I feel like he would have to beat a lot of really tough guys to beat. Like if you put him against Charles Oliveira, that's a guy that'll take him down. And you don't
Yeah.
know, like if Connor can beat that guy or just keep him standing enough to beat him because he has decent striking as well. You get into Mike Chandler. That'd be another guy, the tough matchup because of his wrestling. Tony Ferguson, tough matchup because of his ground game and his uniqueness and his toughness. He's not going to go down with that first shot. So I think for Connor, if he doesn't get the title shot, he should probably get like a tune-up fight. And I think the tune-up fight that would work for him, money-wise, name-wise, I think Nate Diaz would be a good tune-up fight. I think Nate Diaz is kind of on his way out. He's still a tough guy. He's still a draw. The trilogy is also still 1-1, but this gives him a chance to kind of go out there and beat a guy that really is just kind of when you compare him against the lightweight division right now, he's a little bit below that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that would be an interesting fight. But if not that, the Dustin Poirier does interest me a lot just because obviously it's the biggest fight right now. It's on top of everybody's head. But it would be interesting to see how he come out after a loss and try to see what he changes to go into that next fight. Now, talking about some of the elite lightweights that we have in the division, that co-main event showcased that we have a new contender in the division. How impressive was Iron Michael Chandler's debut in the UFC?
Extremely impressive. I'm a huge fan of Paul Felder, and I watched Dan Hooker and Paul Felder fight before. and this looked different. Okay, this looked like a guy that got completely overwhelmed. I don't remember how big of a favorite Dan Hooker was in this fight. He was a slight favorite, right?
Yeah, it was like 180, 140, something like that. It was pretty
Yeah,
close.
yeah. I was completely shocked that he got overwhelmed. Really, like he had no hope in this fight. As far as what he did that actually hurt him in this fight, well, it was kind of obvious. He didn't fight to his size. He crouched down, ate a punch. That was it. there wasn't much more. There wasn't much more to analyze in this fight. He couldn't get away. He didn't get away from one right hand, and that was it. So Michael Chandler, hey, you got to take your hat off. Okay, when a guy comes in talking so much and says, "Look, I'm the uncrowned one. I deserve to be all the way up there in the talks with everybody else." And you walk into the UFC, make your debut, and you dust off Dan Hooker. Yeah. Okay. Start putting him in with, like, he could name his path.
Yeah, and with him, it was his call out after his fight too was just so perfect. It was nailed like a WWE script. You know what I mean? It was just perfect. He called out Conor McGregor. He called out Dustin Poirier. He even called out Khabib, and just the way he did it, it was phenomenal. Just seeing him kind of put on this character in him as well and show that he can draw people. And I think that's a bigger thing
Yeah.
in the UFC. You have to show that you're able to draw fans. And if Chandler can do that, that's all more the benefit of him. But I think definitely one of the most impressive debuts. I mean, you go back to like Anderson Silva when he won his first fight against Chris Lieben, and then he
Yeah.
and then he won the second fight against Rich Franklin for the belt. I mean, that's pretty impressive to come in the UFC. But he's he was obviously well known before that too. But so Michael Chandler kind of similarly comes in and does something really well for him. Now, do you think he deserves a title fight right now, or do you think he should get one more fight? Or if you say yes to one more
No.
fight, no,
No. He does not deserve a title. You can't walk into. It's happened before. Like what are other guys that have come in with a lot of hype for a title shot? As far back as I can remember, Carlos Condit from WEC, he came in, right, and didn't he get a title shot pretty fast, right?
yeah,
Like second or third fight. Jose Aldo's another guy. I don't think Michael Chandler's in that category, and I think it's a new day. There's too many guys in that division. This guy's just going to walk in off the street, and you're going to give him a title shot, So no, I just don't see it happening. But he does deserve a high profile name. That's a fact. You know, maybe Justin Gaethje. It's too many names really in that division. You can pick your name, and it'll make a good fight. But he has proven that hey, he's viable, and he's not only viable. This was a co-main event. He's probably a main event talent for at least a fight night. I
yep,
don't know if he's a main event talent for a pay per view, but for a fight night, absolutely, he's a headliner.
yeah, and he definitely has that name now. You know what I mean? And I definitely agree with you. I think the matchup to make is him versus Justin Gaethje. Both guys have good wrestling. You know what I mean? Justin Gaethje had that
Mm-hmm.
wrestling background, doesn't use it as well. He uses those hands. I think Gaethje was a Bellator guy as well. So
Mm-hmm.
two guys coming from Bellator, showing out, hashing it out. I think that would be a great fight to make. So I'm gonna ask you one last question. I'm gonna give you six names, the top six in the lightweight division. I want you to give me three matchups. So we got Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, Charles Oliveira, Michael Chandler, Ferguson, and McGregor. Give me three matchups that you would make.
Hmm. Well, for Oliveira, he's such a bad matchup for all of them, really, right now. So, what would I do? I'd like to see Oliveira get in against Tony Ferguson and run it right back. Because if you could do that twice to Tony Ferguson, then you just got to hand him a title shot immediately,
Yeah,
or maybe just put the strap on him. You know what I mean?
because he's gonna
Just,
go in and get the win anyways.
yeah, exactly. Okay, so I would like to see that run back. I love to see Poirier Gaethje. I think I love their first fight. I would like to see it again. And as far as Connor, who am I missing here?
Chandler, and I'll give you some extra names. I mean, you got RDA. They were supposed to fight. They haven't. That would
Mm.
be a nice fight to make. Another hard one for Connor just because of the ground game. Dan Hooker, Paul Felder. Obviously Hooker is not there, but
Connor Paul Felder is interesting as
oh,
well. You
mm-hmm.
know, that's an interesting fight as well. So I don't know. All fights that we've seen before. Felder Hooker, if they want to run it back, who's going to say no?
No, yeah, nobody. And he's
So
definitely
that's good
training for
too.
a fight right now. Felder is training for a fight, according to John Anik. So that might be coming up soon to see what he's going to be able to get. Maybe an RDA. Oh no, he just ran it with RDA. So be interested to see who Felder lines up. But he's an exciting fighter, and to match him up with Connor, Felder's one of those guys that kind of deserves that that payday as well. He works hard in the booth. I really love him in the booth. So him versus Connor, that would be an exciting fight. You got the Irish Dragon versus Conor McGregor. You know what I mean? That's going to be a great one.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a great division, and you really can't go wrong there. Like every single one, we're not going to see it. I don't think we're going to see Gaethje Connor. I don't think we're going to see that.
Yeah, it's a horrible matchup. I think that's a knockout waiting to happen.
Yeah, like that's not going to happen. We're not going to see something like that. But as far as Michael Chandler, well, he can name the name, right? Like he could ask for anybody, and you're pretty much going to have to give it to him. Anything short of an immediate title shot, I think he deserves.
Yeah, he came out here. He's a former champion. He beat guys like Eddie Alvarez, Benson Henderson, and now he's coming in and he just knocked out Dan Hooker in the first round. You know what I mean? But exciting time to be in the lightweight division in the UFC. Now, moving on to some of the other fights. Before we get into that, what in the world happened with Ottman Azaitar? He came
That
out.
is confusing.
He's undefeated, knocking a couple guys out in a row, and then he has somebody sneak in, hop from a balcony to a balcony, where if you fall, you're going to die, and drop him off a bag. What went on there?
And supposedly he gave the person his COVID passport, which is evidently really valuable because you can only get them if you're a fighter or if you're in a corner. So I don't know what happened there, but we do know he got immediately fired.
Yep.
On the spot. You got to understand, okay, you're wondering, oh, wow, is it really that bad of an offense? Yes, it is. He put in jeopardy an entire event. A lot of money went in there. A lot of people tested. A lot of people bubbled up for 4 days to put on this event. And you're going to throw away everybody's effort over something stupid that you're doing? Yeah, you're probably going to get fired. So I have no idea what's in that bag. We could speculate now that he's fired, right? Like, it's obviously drugs.
Yeah, I would think some weight cutting stuff, something for him to make weight. I don't know, maybe some good food that they didn't have in there. He was, he had a really passionate delivery.
I don't think I don't think it has anything to do with food, because I saw one of those I forgot what the UFC calls them, but
the vlogs.
The video blogs.
The embedded.
When Masvidal was over there at Fight Island, and he ordered food in. Mm-hmm. So if he can order food in, okay, you need something special brought in. Come on, you're in Abu Dhabi. Like they have everything you could possibly want. Okay, I think it was something illicit. It had to be something illicit.
Yeah, either that or like the real Ottman Azaitar that we don't know of that hides in the bag and he comes in last minute to fight. But moving on to some of the prelim fights, we had a really good victory. By a couple of people. Roundtree looked really bad. He came out and he just looked like he was gassing. Which one of those prelim victories you felt was the most impressive?
Juliana Pena, because it happened exactly how I wanted it to see it happen, and I think her career gets extended now. She's going to be back on to main cards, so I feel good for her. But yeah, Roundtree, that was bad.
Yeah,
and Amanda Ribas, come on, were you as shocked as I was watching this? I'm watching this fight and I'm like, okay, I evidently don't know anything about MMA because I'm talking to. I had a couple of friends over, and of course it's a Conor fight, so everybody wants to show up. Right
now, everybody does. Everybody's the big UFC fan now.
Conor's fighting. Everybody wants to watch him lose, or everybody wants to watch him win, right? So I got a friend of mine who kind of knows about the UFC, but he asked me, who's this chick? Who's Amanda Ribas? And I'm like, she's a killer. She's going to destroy this girl. Then, of course, the fight happens, and I look like an idiot. But what a surprise that was. Yeah. Like, that was the surprise of the night, really. Because when the night was over, I kept thinking about, man, like, that really happened. so
that was one of the ones that was really surprising. I mean, a 250, underdog, and Ribas was a 335 favorite. JoJo Calderwood looked really good. She looked good. The first round before she got knocked out. JoJo Calderwood, she looked really good as well. It'll be interesting to see how much further she has to take before she gets a title shot. Getting onto the flyweights, that the main event, the prelim, the featured prelim, the flyweight was just amazing. He just came out, he dominated. He's at the bottom of the division right now, but he can be somebody who can Arman Sakarian. He can be somebody
Mm-hmm.
that can come in and get that win and really work himself up the division. He was somebody that was impressive as well. Anybody else that impressed you on the card? Oh, Evloev. He came out, he got the win. He stays undefeated, and he got that win. I think he's 14-0 now. That was the early prelims. But he came out, he got the win. He's just showing that he's really evolving into a good fighter. He's a guy that might be a little slept on because he has, very, very good wrestling and his striking is starting to develop. He's a young guy that's really started and grown in the UFC. So it'll be interesting to see. But really good card last week. We have another one next week, which is going to be interesting. Volkov versus Overeem. Big title implications for Overeem, who's trying to make a run at 40 years old. But getting into what else we have coming up this weekend, we have some boxing going on. We have an interesting fight with somebody who might be asking for a really big fight down the line. Caleb Plant taking on Caleb Truax for the IBF Super Middleweight Championship. How do you feel about that fight?
Oh, it's when I saw that the fight was signed, I said to myself, Kel Truax is still around, and I'll give you a brief history, and I brought up his history because it's actually more detailed than I even remember it. Okay, Kel Truax was one of the best prospects in boxing somewhere around 2012. He was undefeated. He was 18-0, and he stepped in against Jermaine Taylor. Jermaine Taylor was one of the best middleweights at the time. He loses by unanimous decision. Okay, time moves on, and if you look at his resume is absolutely ridiculous. Okay, but I'm getting somewhere with this. He steps into with Daniel Jacobs and loses by a 12th round TKO. Right? Are you following here? Then he faces Anthony Durrell. Like, this guy's fighting everybody who's had a name at the middleweight division at any time in the last decade. Okay, and he loses by TKO in the first round. Then he wins the super middleweight title as a huge underdog against James DeGale. Okay, then loses it by unanimous decision. Looks like he's going to fade into obscurity, and then he signs a fight with Peter Quillen. And then in the second round, they have to stop the fight because of cuts. Okay, and it's ruled a no contest. This is the quintessential bad luck fighter, and now he's going to fight Caleb Plant on the way up. Okay, at the peak of his powers, getting ready to sign for big fights. Maybe not Canelo. We have some news on that coming up in a little bit. But it's just, he's one of these hard luck fighters, and I think the hard luck, he's just bad luck. Like, if you see this guy on your plane and you're flying somewhere, I feel bad for you. Okay, like, you know what I mean?
He's probably flying over Malaysia. Like,
Yeah, if he's sitting next to you on a plane, you got to look at him and say, oh my god, it's a very distinct possibility the plane's crashing. You know what I mean? Like, he's just bad luck. Every time he works his way up to a big fight, something bad happens to him. I think it's going to happen to him again. Caleb Plant, fun to watch, fast, good power, good looking kid. And he's at the right weight. Okay, he's at 168. Canelo's there. David Benavidez is there. Do you want one of the gatekeepers? Maybe. Baru Jack, maybe. So there's a lot there for him at 168. It should be a showcase. I would say Caleb Plant should take this fight and take it with relative ease.
yeah, for sure. He's coming in like you said, a huge favorite in this fight. But before we break down the fight, let's talk a little bit about the implications in this fight. If he were to fight Canelo, that's a big fight they've been talking about. We'll talk a little about Canelo later. If it's not Canelo, should he fight David Benavidez first?
Well, that's the thing. Like, what's the bigger fight? Here's the thing. With Canelo, at least you get the money, right? With Benavidez, I don't know. It's a great fight. Benavidez is probably the top star at 168. Yep. Bigger star than Caleb Plant, maybe. But, although, let's face it, the biggest star at 168 is obviously Canelo Alvarez.
It's always about who's the second biggest right now.
Yeah, and second biggest is probably David Benavidez because, Triple G, is he in the picture? Is he not in the picture? He's a DAZN guy, and Canelo's leaving DAZN. So is Triple G even in the picture at 168? We don't know, right? And he seems to want to stay at 160 where he's comfortable. So who knows? Maybe that's not going to happen. So I wouldn't take a Benavidez fight because what are you really going to get out of it? You're probably fighting a really dangerous fighter, which it is. and I don't think you're getting the money. So I think you hold out, you hold on to this belt, and you put up this belt, and you say to Canelo Alvarez, "Are you serious about uniting all the belts at 168?" Like you said, well, I got the last one. Come and get it, and pay me. so,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I think that's what you want to do if you're Keller Plant.
Yeah, you absolutely having the
And you tell
get
David Benavidez, hey, stay in line. Stay
yeah,
in line
just
like everybody else.
just wait for now. Go have yourself another showcase and be somebody. Hopefully, you make weight this time. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
getting into the fight a little bit for Plant, let's break him down because he's coming in, and obviously this is a fight that he should win. But what do you think that he has to do and come out the game plan he has to implement coming into this fight?
Well, he has to be more show than boxer, right? Like if he sat down and he just decided, you know what, I just got to get out of here. I got to get out of tonight with a win. He doesn't have to really extend himself too much. But I think it's a showcase. It's on Fox. It's going to be a big crowd. You're going to get a good. All these PBC shows are doing 1.5 million, 2 million viewers. So there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on it. So you want to get into the consciousness of the American boxing fan. So you want to be flashy. You want to extend yourself, and this is the right guy to do it. Like Truax is a guy who will fight an action fight if you press him to. So I think he'll cooperate, and I think that's exactly what he has to do. If he fights safe, I think people are gonna look at him for what he is, and they're gonna say, okay, this guy's not ready for a Canelo. We're not gonna be too excited to see him against Canelo because he's not gonna press the action. He just want to get his win, get his money, and get out of here.
Yeah, that's we definitely want to see him come out and try to showcase what he's able to do. He's a really good combination of speed, combination punching, and footwork. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Really working around what his opponent's going to give him. He's good at slipping while he's throwing those combinations and throwing something like that. And he's also really well rounded. So he's kind of good working everywhere in the ring. He has good ring IQ. I think for him, it's really going to be coming out against somebody like a pressure fighter like Truax. You know what I mean? He has to keep that jab out there. He likes to keep that jab out there and always just keep touching him just to know where he has it at. I think he's going to have to diversify and make sure he goes to the body and to the head. If he's going to want to showcase, keep ripping that body early because when the body's done early, you can get that late round TKO a lot easier. When their body's hurting and they're protecting that body. And I think using a lot of feints to draw out Truax's power because he's going to come out and he's going to try to hit you hard. So drawing out his feints and understanding what he's going to want to try to counter you with will just make it easier going later in the fight. So I think he's going to come in. I think, like you said, it's an easier fight for him. As long as he implements his game plan, he should get the win. But he should also be looking to, like you said, showcase himself and make himself a name that's known. You want to fight Canelo, you have to be a name that people know that are going to fight Canelo. It doesn't want to be Canelo versus who's this guy. You know what I mean? You want to be a
Mm-hmm.
name that you're coming in and fighting and actually trying to get something like a Max Holloway win, where he's just going out, showing out on ABC and just destroying Calvin Kattar. But getting into Truax, he's won, like you talked about a little bit, as a huge underdog before. He cashed in as a plus 5,000 against DeGale. And like,
I remember watching that fight, and I'm like, okay, what a waste of time. Why am I wasting a Saturday night watching this? And I'm like, wow, look, what just happened? He just won the middleweight title of the world. But again, what happened? He got in against him, and he loses a unanimous decision. He really didn't win like a round in that fight.
yeah.
But he's a fun fighter to watch. But like I said, he's bad luck. You know,
Yeah.
every time he gets into a big one, something bad's gonna happen.
And for him, he kind of wears it on his shield. He'll go out there and he'll do what he has to do. He'll try to implement his game
Mm.
plan. He'll give you his all. And it paid off for him once. He got that title win when he wasn't really supposed to, and he cashed in as an underdog. I want
Yeah,
to know
he's
if
not a gatekeeper. He's the actual gate. You know,
right. He's the game.
you know what I mean. So
So getting into how he has to win this fight, because I think there is a slight chance of him winning this fight. You know what I mean? If Plant
mm,
comes out a little bit timid, and Truax comes out and he focuses on getting openings early. You know what I mean? Plant likes to keep his hands a little bit lower than
yeah,
most fighters, and he likes to use a lot of head movement early. So if he can find some of those openings early, I think that might really benefit him. Second thing is he has to really make sure that even though Plant's hands are down, keep working the body as well. Because being a pressure fighter and trying to make them stay against the fence, or sorry, like against the fence, against the ring, that makes his movement a lot more limited. And if you can limit the movement of Plant, it's going to make it a lot harder for him to just evade like how he's used to with his regular, slipping of a shot. So I think if he's able to corner him, really pressure him, keep him on his back foot, and tire him out towards the end of the fight, where we've kind of seen Plant fade before, I think Truax can come out here, and I think he can. There is a chance for him to get that win if he does something like that. Now, getting to the predictions, who do you think's going to win this fight?
Well, I think Plant's going to win this fight, and he's going to win it in spectacular fashion. But back to what something that you just said, it's so true. Truax is a guy who will apply the pressure. And the great thing about this fight is that if you believe that styles make fights, there's only one way that Truax can win, and that's by getting his resume and putting it out in the middle of the ring and saying, you know what, Caleb Plant, and it's the truth. It's very similar to what happened with Luke Campbell and Ryan Garcia, although Ryan Garcia did end Luke Campbell. But Luke Campbell did drop Ryan Garcia after spectacular fashion, right? Caleb Plant's resume, quite frankly, it's really light. Like, we know he's a great prospect, we know he's a good fighter, but the resume is it's kind of weak.
He hasn't been tested.
He hasn't been tested. While Truax's resume is absolutely ridiculous. Okay, he has, by my count, I don't know if Danny Jacobs is a Hall of Famer, but I'm pretty certain that Peter Quillen probably is, and Anthony Durrell is probably a Hall of Famer. That's 2 Hall of Famers on your resume.
Yeah.
Okay, and DeGaule's not a bad fighter either. So come on, you look at that resume, use your experience, press the fight, and go for broke. You're gonna have to go for broke because you're not going to win a decision against Caleb Plant.
And you have nothing to lose. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're the huge underdog. Everybody's looking at you to lose this fight anyways. So go out like you've done before, and hey, just go out on your shield. Pressure him, try to keep him in the corner. But I think Plant, like you said, for him, it's going to be a little bit easier to come out and implement his game plan. If he's able to use his footwork and really just stay moving and make sure that he tries to, draw out whatever Truax has coming on, I think he can get this win. And I think it's going to be either a late round win or a decision win. He's usually 50-50. I think he has 12 knockouts, eight decisions. But I think this one will be like somewhere where he'll get a late knockout coming into the fight.
Yeah, TKO 9th round sounds about right to me.
Yeah. After beating him up for a couple of rounds, just to with a jab, keeping that jab out there, getting those ripping the body shots. I think it'll be a nice fight for him as well.
Yeah, and moving on to further boxing for the month of February, it's going to be absolutely great. We know already that Canelo Alvarez will defend his title here in Miami at Hard Rock Stadium on February 27th. Now, what's funny about that is that it seems there's a rumor going around, and it seems that it's probably the truth, that Canelo Alvarez has already signed on to defend his title, probably Cinco de Mayo weekend, against Billy Joe Saunders. That fight will get a lot of eyeballs. If they allow people into an arena, those seats are going to go for a lot of money. Billy Joe Saunders has a huge following in England. Canelo, of course, has his great Mexican fans. So that will be a great matchup. The funniest part about that press release was if Canelo Alvarez manages to beat Ivry Labrim, he could defend his title against Billy Joe Saunders. I don't think there's any danger on February 27th, but I will tell you this, and it's an awful thing that boxing does, I guess, from time to time. All the eyeballs will be on Canelo on February 27th, but that same night, we have one of the best fights you could possibly have. And I'm trying to figure out at what time they're going to have this fight, but the fight's in London. It's Jamel Herring. He's going to be fighting Carl the Jackal Frampton. Carl Frampton is actually a friend of the show, kind of, because my 3 yards per carry mate, Simon Clancy, actually knows Carl Frampton. Okay, that's going to be a great fight for the junior lightweight title. It's in London. It's going to be on ESPN Plus, while Canelo is fighting on DAZN, his last fight. So it's direct competition, which is strange. You have a really good title fight, and then you have a showcase with the pay-per-view king, Canelo Alvarez. So that's what's coming up in boxing in February. It's a great, great month. Problem is that both big fights are on the same night, February 27th. So what's cooking on the UFC calendar coming up here, Jonathan?
So before we get into UFC, tomorrow we do have a couple of international events, or actually one international event. We have one championship tomorrow. If anybody's waking up at 7:30 in the morning, want to watch some fights going on in Japan, with a little bit of modified rules. They got one championship. Of course, they got the great Demetrius Johnson over there. They got Eddie Alvarez over there. They got a couple of great fighters over in one championship. Tomorrow night on UFC Fight Pass, which I'm going to shamelessly plug, they have LFA 98. And LFA is great because the one guy that beat Israel Adesanya is actually training in kickboxing. The one guy that knocked him out in kickboxing is training in MMA now, and he's fighting in LFA. The first guy that he fought in LFA, he knocked him out, and I thought he died. He was down for about 15 minutes. You know, when they first get knocked out, it was kind of like when Leo Santa Cruz got knocked out. It was like, oh, he's down, and then it's like, oh, he's going to get back up. You know what I mean? He did that. You know, so it's really he's an impressive prospect to watch on LFA. But UFC Fight Pass is great because they have LFA, they got Cage Warriors, they got a Titan FC, they have a bunch of different promotions. They got all the fights over there, so that's fun to see. But getting into the UFC fights, next week, we got Overeem versus Volkov in the main event. That's a top 5 fight, 2 guys in the top 5 going against each other. But there's another guy that's really exciting me in the flyweight division. He was actually serving as the backup against Davidson Benavidez Figueiredo versus Moreno, and his name is Manel Cape, and he was actually didn't have a fight in the UFC yet, but he fought in Rise In, so he's fighting Alexandre Pantoja in the flyweight division, and this guy is a guy that's coming from 135 going down back to 125. He's another guy that's exciting. Going on the week after that, we have Usman taking on Gilbert Burns in the main event, which is going to be a really, really fun main event. 2 guys, ex-teammates coming out. Both just monsters. Since Usman obviously is 20-1, 20 or 17-1. His only loss being a long time ago. I think his first fight, but been on a just destructive reign. He beat Covington wonderfully. He beat Tyron Woodley, just devastated him. He beat Masvidal, and then Gilbert Burns is coming in. Defeating Damian Maia, beating Tyron Woodley as well. So he's coming out. He deserved the shot last year, but he got COVID. But that's going to be a fun fight to see. And to close out the month, we're going to have one more after that, but it's still a smaller card. We see the Black Beast, Derek Lewis. He's coming back. He's taking on Curtis Blades, one of the best fighters, just on the mic, with everything. His balls is hot. He goes and knocks out Volkov in the 3rd round after losing that fight. He said,
credit goes to Joe Rogan for asking him the question, why did you take your shorts off in the middle of the ring? And he goes, my balls was hot.
And he has no filter. And against the Orlovsky fight, he posted a video where he got Orlovsky's food in his thing because they were fighting in Fight Island. He was like, oh, it needs some flavor. And he spit in the food. And he's like, I'm going to give it back to my boy Orlovsky now. And then he goes in and he knocks him out. That was a good one. And, so he's an exciting fighter to see. And to close out the month, we're going to have Dominic Reyes and Gigi Proska taking it out in light heavyweight division coming out next month. So we have a ton of fights. Go ahead.
On the way out, I got to ask you, Francis Ngannou, it seems like it's going to happen. Him and Stipe are going to fight. Does he get the crown, or does it remain with Stipe? Early prediction.
I'm going to say he gets the crown. I'm going to say he gets the crown. I think this guy's been working at it for a long time. He lost that first fight, and, Stipe is still a great fighter, but I feel like Francis is just coming out with a little bit more skill than he did last time. You know what I mean? He'll be a little bit more ready this time, and his power is devastating. I think his last 5 fights combined are less than 10 minutes.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've been watching on YouTube, especially Teddy Atlas's channel, but he's been working out with Teddy Atlas in Brooklyn at his gym. So that's not good news for Stipe Miocic. If Francis starts learning how to put punches together, that's a problem for anybody, really.
Yeah, but the power he has in those hands, and all it takes is one. So if he throws a 5-piece combination or a 3-piece combo, follow me on Twitter, you can go ahead and, he can hit him with one of those guys. And one of those punches, and that's it. You know what I mean? It's like, man, that guy can come out. He can knock anybody out. We have some great fights coming up this month. Keep it locked on right here on Fight Week on 5, brought to you by the 5 Reasons Sports Network. I want to thank Alf. I want to thank Manny for producing the show. I'm Jonathan. I hope you guys have a great week and enjoy the fights this weekend. I'll see you guys next week.